The author of this fanfiction name is Fanatic06. He works on fanfiction.net and the link is in the description to the stories.
Chapter 10, The Battle at Pewter City Gym. Ash, Serena, Misty, and Pikachu stepped into the Pewter City Gym. They were in a very large room that was almost the size of the gym itself. The room was poorly lit, making it a little hard for the group to see anyone or anything. They could tell the floor was made out of stone. They could also see several large rocks sticking up from the ground to fit the theme. Hello. Ash called. Is anyone there? My name is Ash Ketchum. I'm here for a gym challenge against Brock. Suddenly, bright lights illuminated the room, momentarily dazing the group and causing them to shield their eyes. When their eyes adjusted to the light, they looked and saw a teenage boy sitting Indian style across the room. The boy had dark brown, almost black, spiky hair that stuck out in many different directions. He had dark tan skin and squinty eyes. He wore a green vest over an orange shirt and brown pants. Are you Brock? Ash asked. I am, Brock confirmed. I'm Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town. I have come to challenge you to a gym battle for the Boulder Badge, said Ash. Is that your Pikachu? Brock asked while pointing. Yes. It is, Ash replied. Brock then looked at Pikachu in an almost demeaning way. I see. So it is still in its cutest stage. Judging by his tone, Ash and Pikachu could tell it wasn't a compliment. What's that supposed to mean? Ash asked with some anger in his voice. It means it can't win. Brock answered. Well, we'll just see about that, won't we? Ash asked rhetorically. As if to demonstrate its power, Pikachu curled its paws into fists and sparked its cheeks. Heh. Well, as a gym leader, I must accept every challenge. Be warned, as I do not lose easily, Brock said as he stood up. We can take you on. My Pokemon and I may even have a few tricks up our sleeve, Ash told Brock. Very well. I must ask your guests to move to the second floor so they are not in the way, Brock said. The group turned and saw a set of stairs that led up to a walkway on the second floor that had a nice view of the field. Misty went ahead towards the staircase, but Serena stayed behind for just a second. Good luck, Ash. You will do great, she said. She then gave him a wink. Remember, never give up until the end. You got it, Serena, Ash said as he gave her a thumbs up. Serena then smiled and headed towards the staircase herself. Brock couldn't help but smile to himself. He wished he had a girl that was close to him, but now was not the time to think about things like that. He needed to focus on the match. Do you know the rules for the Pewter City Gym? He asked. No. I'm afraid I don't, Ash said while rubbing the back of his neck. It's simple. As the gym leader, I cannot make any substitutions. As the challenger, you may make as many as you like. I will use just 2 Pokemon. Tell me, Ash. Are you a trainer that is just starting out? Yes. I've been a trainer for about a week and a half, Ash responded. So I take it this is your first badge you are attempting, Brock asked. That's correct, Ash said. Very well. In that case, I will allow you to use as many Pokemon as you need. It is a privilege the gyms allow to new trainers, Brock said. Were this not your first, you would only be allowed to use 2 Pokemon as well. I understand and accept, Ash stated. Very well. I will choose my first Pokemon now. Go, Goedude. Brock yelled as he threw his Pokeball through the air. The Pokeball landed on the ground and Goedude emerged. It looked like a large gray rock with a face and arms sticking out from the side of it. A Goedude. Ash said to himself as he got his Pokédex out to scan it. Goedude, the rock Pokemon. It uses its powerful arms to climb mountains and is often mistaken for a boulder, the Pokédex said. Ash put his Pokédex back in his pocket and studied Geodude for a second. He would get to use all of his Pokémon, so he decided he shouldn't use Pidgeotto and Pikachu just yet. He would save his Steel-type attacks in case Brock had a much stronger Pokémon at his disposal. "Go, Butterfree," Ash called as he threw the Pokeball to release Butterfree. "Free!" Butterfree cried as it came out. It then flew in front of Ash and faced Geodude. Brock then crossed his arms. "You may make the first move," he said. "All right. In that case, Butterfree, use String Shot to try to immobilize Geodude," Ash called out. Butterfree obeyed and shot a continuous amount of sticky string at Geodude. "Yes," Ash said as he saw the sting connect and begin wrap around Geodude. However, its skin was so rough that the string wasn't able to get a good grip on Geodude. It easily broke out of the string. "String Shot won't work against my rock Pokemon," Brock said. "Geodude, use Tackle." Geodude began hopping towards Butterfree, but Butterfree was much faster. "Butterfree, fly up high so Geodude can't reach you," Ash called. Butterfree did as it was told and flew high into the air away from Geodude. "Great job, Butterfree. We should have the advantage now," Ash told it. "You think so?" asked Brock. "Geodude, use Rock Throw." Geodude then smashed one of the nearby large rocks into smaller rocks and began to hurl them upward at Butterfree at a fairly fast rate. "Watch out, Butterfree. Dodge those rocks," Ash called. Butterfree then began moving through air as fast as could. It was doing a fairly good job, but due to the number of rocks Geodude had thrown, one eventually hit it. "Free!" Butterfree cried out as it was hit by one of the rocks, but managed to stay in the air. "It's okay, Butterfree," Ash called out. "Use your confusion attack." Butterfree nodded as its eyes glowed for a second. Geodude then began enveloped in a blue form of energy and was lifted up into the air. "Great job, Butterfree. Now send it flying," Ash yelled. Butterfree nodded and used its powers to send Geodude flying across the field at a high speed and into one of the boulders. The impact caused an explosion of small pebbles to fly out. Geodude grimaced from the pain but soon hopped out of the newly created hole ready for more. "Use Rock Throw again, Geodude," called Brock. "Use Psychic now, Butterfree. Don't give it chance to use that attack," Ash countered. Butterfree's eyes glowed blue again for a little bit before emitting a huge blast of energy. The blast soared through the air and struck Geodude, who was too slow to get out of the way. It was sent sailing through the air again and onto the ground. It was able to get back up but was clearly getting tired. "Ash is doing really well so far, isn't he?" Serena commented as she watched the battle from above while leaning on the rails. "He is, but a gym leader isn't going to lose that easily," Misty replied as she watched also. "Brock definitely has something planned. It seems we are going to need to kick this up a notch." "Geodude, use Rock Polish," Brock called out. Geodude then began to glow for a few seconds before stopping. It now seemed a lot shinier than it once was. "Rock Polish, huh?" Ash said to himself. He remembered that move was supposed to greatly increase the user's speed. "Be careful, Butterfree. Geodude is a lot faster now." Butterfree nodded and prepared itself for anything Geodude might do. "Geodude, try your Rock Throw once more," Brock called out. Geodude once again smashed a boulder beside it and began throw small boulders at Butterfree again, but this time at very alarming rate due to the speed increase. Butterfree was trying its best to dodge the boulders but was having great difficulty doing so. It wasn't long before it began to get hit by a few of them. "There has to be something I can do to stop those boulders," Ash thought. "Wait. I know." He then called, "Butterfree. Use confusion to stop those rocks in midair. Butterfree stopped trying to dodge the rocks, and its eyes glowed. The boulders that Goedude was hurling stopped in their tracks and glowed with a blue energy around them and were suspended in midair. That's great, Butterfree. Send all of those rocks back at Goedude. Butterfree nodded and soon the boulders were flying through the air again, but this time at Goedude. One by one, Goedude was pelted by the rocks. They weren't doing a great deal of damage because of its rock typing, but they still hurt. Quick Goedude. Use Stone Edge. Brock called. Through the pain, Goedude managed to summon a massive spiked rock from the ground and chucked it Butterfree with all its might. It then resumed to be hit by the rocks flying at it. Unfortunately, Butterfree was too busy hitting Goedude with the rocks that it didn't have time to block Stone Edge. The rock collided hard with Butterfree. Butterfree gave a squeal of pain as it fell to the ground. It then landed and didn't get back up. No. Butterfree. Ash cried. Your Butterfree is unable to battle anymore. You have trained it very well, but it still wasn't enough to beat Goedude, Brock told Ash. Ash grit his teeth as he returned Butterfree. You were great, Butterfree. Thanks. Take a good rest, Ash told it. Oh, Ash lost Butterfree, Serena said sadly. I told you Brock probably had something planned, Misty said. That rock polish to increase Goedude's speed was all that was needed to make a difference in the match. Ash was thinking about whom he should use next. There was no doubt he would need speed to combat Goedude's rock polish. Fortunately, both Pikachu and Pidgeotto had it. The only real question was if it was better in the air or on the ground. If he sent out Pidgeotto, it would be wide open in the air with nowhere to hide from any oncoming boulders like Butterfree was. On the other hand, while Pikachu would be able to hide behind any rocks on the field, it was at risk of any ground-type attacks that Goedude could no doubt do. After giving each situation some thought, Ash made his decision. Pidgeotto, I choose you. Ash shouted as he released Pidgeotto from the Pokeball. Pidgeotto! Pidgeotto cried. A Pidgeotto. They are weak against rock types. Are you sure that's the Pokemon you want to use? Brock asked. I'm sure. We may just surprise you. Ash said. Very well. In that case, Goedude. Use Rock Throw again. Brock called. Pidgeotto. Use Quick Attack to get out of the way of those boulders. Ash countered. Before any boulder Goedude threw at Pidgeotto connected, Pidgeotto shot out of the way. Despite Goedude's increase in speed, Pidgeotto was just too quick for any boulders to connect with it. It was able to dart out of the way of all of them. Excellent, Pidgeotto. Use Sand Attack to distract Goedude. Ash ordered. Pidgeotto then shot towards the ground at amazing speed and flapped its wings to build up some sand from the ground. Then it hurled it in Goedude's direction. The sand hit Goedude squarely in the face, and it began to desperately try to get the sand out of its eyes. Great Pidgeotto. While Goedude is distracted, use your gust to send it flying into the air. Ash said next. Pidgeotto then began to flap its wings at a very quick pace. This created a large gust of air that was sent towards Goedude. Despite its weight, the gust of air was too strong, and it was being pushed back. Hang on, Goedude. Brock yelled. It was no use, though. Soon, the strong wind lifted Goedude off the ground. It went flying into the air and was now completely helpless. Use Steel Wing while Goedude is in the air, Pidgeotto. Ash called. Pidgeotto dove straight at Goedude who was now falling back down to the ground. Pidgeotto's right wing glowed white, and then it slammed right into Goedude. Duoyuid. Goedude cried out as it continued to fall. It then fell to the ground in defeat. You were great, Pidgeotto. Ash praised. Serena smiled from above and cheered. Woohoo! Way to go, Ash! She yelled. Ash saw Serena smile at him from down below and give her a thumbs up. She gave a light blush, but Ash was too far away to notice. Misty noticed it, however, and smiled to herself. Brock returned Goedude to its pokeball and gave it a sad smile. You worked hard, Goedude. Well done. Take a good rest, he said. Brock then turned to Ash. That wasn't bad at all. Your Pidgeotto has very impressive speed. I'll admit, you are much better than I originally made you out to be. Still, do you think you can handle my next Pokemon? Pidgeotto and I can handle anything you throw at us. Right, Pidgeotto. Ash said. Pidgeotto gave a coo in response. We'll see. Onix. Go. Brock said as he threw his Pokeball. The Pokeball opened up and a massive rock snake-like Pokemon appeared. It had to be almost 30 feet long. Ash pulled out his Pokédex again to scan the Pokemon. Onix, the rock snake Pokemon. This Pokemon's body is as hard as diamonds. It can move through the ground at over 50 miles per hour, said the Pokédex. Ash, Pidgeotto, and Pikachu couldn't help but sweat drop at the size of the Onix. Ash had seen several on television before or from pictures in a book, but to see one in person was pretty intimidating. Misty sighed. Ash really has his work cut out for him now. Onix is going to be really hard to take down even if Ash's Pokemon do have Steel-type moves at their disposal. He can still win, can't he? Serena asked Misty hopefully. He can still win, but he's going to have to battle really smart and not make any errors, Misty answered. Don't let Onix's size scare you, Pidgeotto. Use Steel Wing. Ash ordered. Pidgeotto began to fly towards Onix. Being the big target that Onix was, the move was certain to hit. What Pidgeotto and Ash weren't expecting, however, was for Onix to take its hardtail and swat Pidgeotto out of the air like a fly before the move hit. Oh, Pidgeotto! Ash cried out in worry when Pidgeotto hit the ground. Pidgeotto gave a weak cry in response and slowly pushed itself back to its feet with its wings. The attack clearly hurt, but Pidgeotto could still fight. Onix. Use Rock Throw. Brock ordered. Onix smashed the boulders with its tail and began to hurl them at Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto. Use Quick Attack again to get out of the way. Ash called. Pidgeotto took flight and darted out of the air before the rocks hit. Onix wasn't going to let Pidgeotto get away that easily, however. It then began to hurl the rocks upward. Pidgeotto continued to dodge the rocks with its quick attack, but Onix was able to throw a lot more rocks at a time than Goedude, making them harder to dodge. Ash grit his teeth as he tried to think of something. A full-on attack was no good unless Pidgeotto were take another swat from Onix's tail. Maybe he could try to blind Onix with Sand Attack. The only problem was Onix was too big to attack directly, so he would have to cover the field with Sand Attack. Pidgeotto. Use Sand Attack and cover the whole field. Ash yelled. Pidgeotto swooped down and began to whip of sand as fast as it could. Oh no, you don't. Onix. Use Stone Edge. Brock countered. Onix summoned a massive stalagmite from the ground and chucked it at Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto had just finished the Sand Attack at that time and darted out of the way before the attack hit. There was now a huge, thick dust cloud covering the field. Be careful, Onix. Pidgeotto could be anywhere, Brock warned through the sand. Brock and Onix continued to try to see through the sand until they heard Ash's voice. Pidgeotto. Use Steel Wing. They heard. Before Onix could react, it saw a small shadow shoot out of the sand and collide with its face. Onix roared into pain as the Steel Wing connected. Pidgeotto then darted back into the dust cloud. Great, Pidgeotto. Use Steel Wing again. Ash hollered. Once again, before Onyx could react, Pidgeotto darted out from the cloud with its wing glowing, and Onyx took another Steel Wing to the face. By then, the dust cloud was gone. And Pidgeotto was once again exposed. Let's use that strategy again, Pidgeotto. Use Sand Attack. Ash said. Not so fast. Onyx. Grab Pidgeotto with your tail. Brock ordered. Onyx reached out with its long tail and snatched Pidgeotto before it could get away. Now bind it? Brock said. Onyx then began to squeeze Pidgeotto in its rock-hard tail. Try to break free, Pidgeotto. Ash called. It was no use, though. Onyx's hold was too tight. Pidgeotto was clearly struggling and in a lot of pain. Ash could only imagine the pain Pidgeotto was feeling as Onyx's squeeze began to get tighter and tighter. It was soon Ash knew he had no choice. He couldn't be reckless. Brock, stop. Pidgeotto has had enough. He called. Very well. Onyx. Release Pidgeotto. It is now out of the match, Brock said. Onyx did as it was told and gently set Pidgeotto on the ground. Pidgeotto was in a lot of pain and gasping for air. Return, Pidgeotto. Ash called as he withdrew it. He then looked at the Pokeball. You were amazing, Pidgeotto. Thank you. You defeated his Geodude and weakened his Onyx. Take a good rest. I want to congratulate you on your decision to withdraw Pidgeotto when the situation was hopeless. You clearly care a lot for your Pokemon's well-being, Brock said. Ash nodded and looked at Pikachu. Well, Pikachu, it's all up to you now. Are you up for it? Ash asked. Pikachu said with a determined look on its face as it ran forward onto the battlefield. Come on, Ash. You can do it. Serena called from up above. Pikachu is definitely at a disadvantage with typing and size. Ash will have to use Pikachu's size to his advantage if he can, Misty replied. The two then noticed a bunch of small kids filing in the gym around them. They all had dark hair and squinty eyes like Brock. They must be Brock's younger brothers and sisters that Flint had talked about and had come to watch the match. It's all up to you, Pikachu. I believe in you, Ash thought to himself. To his great surprise, Pikachu actually turned around and nodded at its trainer. Ash never said anything, so did Pikachu read his mind or something? Ash quickly pushed the matter aside because he knew he needed to focus on the match. Let's begin, Brock said. Onyx, use Rock Throw. Once again, Onyx smashed the boulders with its tail and began to hurl the rocks from the debris at Pikachu. Use Agility and dodge, Pikachu. Ash said. Pikachu darted out of the way and easily dodged the large rocks thrown at it. It then went a step further and began jump on top of the rocks as they were being thrown. Ash then had an idea. Pikachu, use those rocks as they're being thrown as a path to Onyx's head, Ash called. Pikachu then began to hop from rock to rock and it was soon able to reach Onyx's head. It then jumped on top of it. Shake the Pikachu off, Onyx. Brock yelled. Hang on, Pikachu, and use Iron Tail. Ash yelled in return. Pikachu's tail glowed white for a few seconds before it slammed its tail down on top of Onyx's head. Onyx roared in pain yet again as that was the third time it was struck in the head with a steel-type move. Keep at it, Pikachu. You are doing great. Ash encouraged. Pikachu nodded and struck Onyx again with Iron Tail. After taking a fourth steel-type move, Onyx was getting pretty tired. Keep trying to shake it off, Onyx, Brock said. Prepare for one more Iron Tail, Pikachu. Ash yelled. Pikachu was just about to use Iron Tail again, but Onyx was able to swat Pikachu with its tail this time. Pikachu went sailing towards the ground and struck the ground very hard. Ash, Serena, and Misty couldn't help but cringe at how bad that must have hurt. Pikachu. Are you okay? Ash asked worriedly. Pieyain, it muttered as it slowly began trying to get up. Let's finish this, Onyx. Use Rock Tomb. Brock commanded. Onyx obeyed and began throwing rocks at Pikachu. Since Pikachu was weakened, it was unable to get around in time. The rocks weren't hitting Pikachu though. They were surrounding it. The rocks continued to build up layers until Pikachu was completely covered. It was trapped. Pikachu. Can you hear me? Pikachu. Ash called over and over, but there was no response. Serena and Misty both sighed sadly while Brock's siblings cheered. It was really close, but that Onyx was just too powerful, Misty said. Serena gave a sad look over at Ash from below. Oh, Ash, she said. Her crush had done so well, also. He was so close. It's best for you to give up the match and get your Pikachu, Brock told Ash. Ash nodded and was just about to forfeit when he heard something. It was a rumbling sound coming from inside the rock tomb. Soon a loud crash was heard and the rock tomb exploded into shards of rock that went flying in every direction. After the debris settled, there was Pikachu. It looked tired but still ready to fight. It must have used its iron tail to break free from the rock tomb. Way to go, Pikachu! Ash cheered happily. His Pokémon had proven to Ash multiple times now that they were not going to give up for their trainer that easily. All he had to do was believe in their strength. Serena and Misty both cheered from the sidelines that Pikachu was still okay while Brock's siblings groaned. Come on, Ash. You and Pikachu can do it. Serena yelled from above. I'm impressed your Pikachu has broken free, but we aren't finished just yet. Onyx. Use Rock Tomb once more. Brock called out. With a new fire and determination, Ash and Pikachu weren't going to let that happen again. Pikachu. Use agility and get out of the way. Ash called out. Pikachu obeyed and sped away. Onyx was relentless, however, and was now using Rock Throw. It continued to throw rocks at Pikachu. It was being careful to throw them in a low arc so Pikachu couldn't use them as a path to its head again. Pikachu was doing an excellent job of dodging the rocks, but Ash knew they couldn't keep that up forever. He also knew there was no way Pikachu could get close without either being grabbed or swatted by Onyx's tail. Electric attacks would never work either, so what could he do? He was looking at the rocks that Onyx was throwing at Pikachu. They were much larger than the ones Onyx had used for Rock Tomb, so Pikachu probably would be unable to shatter them with Iron Tail. It was risky, but he could probably knock them away. It was then Ash had an idea. Pikachu. Use Iron Tail on those rocks and aim for Onyx. Ash shouted. Pikachu stopped what it was doing and prepared an Iron Tail. Those rocks looked intimidating while they were flying at it. Pikachu was unsure if it had the power to push away those rocks, but Ash trusted it, so it would trust in itself. As one of the rocks was almost upon it, Pikachu swung its glowing tail around with all of its might. The rock stopped for just a second before shooting right back towards Onyx at breakneck speed. Pikachu then did it again with the next rock that came towards it. Onyx stared in complete surprise for a moment that Pikachu was actually able to deflect its rocks before it was soon struck hard by the rocks it had thrown. They were moving at such an incredible speed that they actually did a good amount of damage to Onyx, leaving it dazed for a bit. Onyx. Try and shake it off. Brock called. Ash knew he had to take his chance now before Onyx recovered. Pikachu. Use Quick Attack to get to Onyx as fast as you can and follow up with Iron Tail. Ash shouted. Pika Pika. Pikachu shouted as it darted forward towards Onyx. Once it reached Onyx, It leaped high into the air as its tail started to glow white. Pikachu was going to make this one count. It then swung its tail around in a full spin and struck Onix with its iron tail right in middle section. Onix roared in pain as the impact knocked it backwards. It then collapsed onto the ground. Onix! Brock cried. Onix was struggling to get back up, but was unable to and then collapsed again. This time it didn't get back up. Ash stared in shock for a moment. He had actually done it. He defeated Brock's Pokemon. He couldn't contain his excitement anymore. All right! Ash shouted as he pumped his fist into the air. He then ran towards Pikachu. Pikachu gave Ash a tired smile before falling on the ground in exhaustion, but Ash caught it just in time. You were awesome, Pikachu. Thanks a lot, buddy. Ash praised. Pikachu then gave a nod in Ash's arms and closed its eyes to rest. Ash! Ash turned around at the voice and saw Serena running towards him with Misty following behind. She stopped in front of him. You and your Pokemon were amazing. I knew you could do it, Serena said happily. I must admit, Ash. You really pulled it off. That was a great victory, Misty said. Thanks. Ash said. He then looked over and saw Brock's siblings going over to comfort Brock. Brock gave them all a smile before returning his Onix to its Pokeball and congratulating it for its hard work. He then began to walk towards Ash. You did a great job, Ash. You really surprised me. You overcame all odds with your type disadvantage and triumphed. You really do deserve this boulder badge, Brock said as he held out the badge. Thank you, Brock, Ash said as he took it. He looked over the badge. It was gray in color and circular but had several rough edges like a rock. All right. I got the boulder badge. Ash shouted happily. There is a confession I have to make, Ash. The truth is I don't really want to be a gym trainer. My love for Pokemon has instead led me to want to be a Pokemon breeder, Brock told Ash. Ash, Serena, and Misty all remembered that Flint had told them the same thing. Unfortunately, I have to stay here and care for my siblings, and family comes first, Brock continued while gesturing to his siblings behind him. Ash, you are a great trainer and really care for your Pokemon. If it's not too much trouble, would you help me fulfill my dream by any chance? If you come across anything beneficial to the well-being of a Pokemon, whether it be food, techniques, or anything, could you please let me know? I will, Brock, Ash responded. The group then heard the doors open, and everyone saw that it was Flint who entered. Flint? What are you doing here? Ash asked. The man didn't answer and instead went to Brock. He then took off the cap covering his eyes and fake beard to reveal a man who looked a lot like Brock. The only real difference was a slightly aged face and a few gray hairs. My father, Brock said with a hint of disdain in his voice as his siblings gasped in surprise. They didn't remember their father much like Brock did but could still tell it was him. What? You're the good-for-nothing father who left? Ash exclaimed in surprise. I am, Flint answered. He then turned to Brock. Brock, you should go and follow your dream to be a Pokemon breeder. I will stay here and care for my family and the gym like I should have been doing. I've been a terrible father so far, but I would like to try and make up for it the best way I can. I know saying sorry won't be enough, so I need to do it through my actions. Wait a minute. If you are Brock's father, then why were you helping me? Ash asked. I already told you. I sensed something special in you. If I helped you, I felt something good might happen, and it did. I realized the error of my ways and want to be a proper father to Brock and the rest of the family, Flint answered. Thank you, Brock said. Turning to Ash, he said, Hey, Ash. As I've said before, you are a great trainer, and I admire the bond you have with your Pokemon. I think we can each learn a lot from each other. You wouldn't mind if I came with you on your journey, would you? I don't mind at all, Brock. The more the merrier, Ash said. Is that okay with you guys? He asked Serena and Misty. They both nodded. Thank you, Brock said gratefully. Thank you for giving me a chance, Brock. I won't let you or siblings down as a father anymore, Flint said. Before I go, there are some things I have to tell you, Brock said seriously. Flint sighed. I understand. I imagine there are many things you need to get off your chest. I'm ready. Here, Brock said as he handed him a pencil and a piece of paper. What are these for? Flint asked in confusion before Brock went off a huge number of special needs each of his siblings had, ranging from allergies, to dislikes of foods, to bedtimes, to favorite stories. Flint was frantically trying to keep up with writing everything down before finally saying in frustration, slow down. I can't write that fast. Ash, Misty, Serena, and their new companion Brock were walking into the Pokemon Center in Pewter City. Before heading out, they decided to heal the Pokemon that were injured from the battle and also get a good checkup for the ones who weren't, since this would be the last Pokemon Center until at least MT Moon, which was about 3 days away. While on the way to the Pokemon Center, they learned that Brock was quite the handyman when it came to chores. Brock had volunteered to do laundry and dishes for the whole group whenever necessary. Best of all, Brock had told them that he was a great cook as well. He had already brought plenty of cooking utensils and food, which he stuffed into a backpack. He even brought a map. Ash volunteered to carry any remaining in his own backpack. With Brock wanting to do permanent chore and dinner duty, traveling on the road would be much easier from now on. However, despite all of Brock's good qualities, they were about to discover a major flaw in him now that they were at a Pokemon Center. Nurse Joy! Brock cried in delight as he ran forward up to her. Oh hello, Brock. Are you here to heal your Pokemon after a gym battle? Nurse Joy asked pleasantly. I am, but I came to see you as well. Perhaps we can get together for dinner later? You are the girl of my dreams. Brock said in a goofy voice. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I'm busy for the rest of the day, Nurse Joy said while sweat dropping. Since Brock was a regular at this Pokemon Center, she was used to his advances by now. Brock got a dejected look on his face and sulked while the group came up behind him to the desk. Needless to say, they were very surprised at Brock's behavior just now. Brock. Are you okay? Serena asked a little uncertainly. No. I just got rejected by the most beautiful woman in the world, Brock sobbed. The group gave a questioning look to Nurse Joy, who mouthed the words "he's always like this" to them. She then gave a smile to let them know Brock would be fine and that there was no need to worry. So anyway, we came here before we leave Pewter City so we can get our Pokemon healed and checked out real quick, Ash stated, still in a bit of shock from Brock's personality change. I'd be very happy to, Nurse Joy smiled as she took the group's Pokeballs and Pikachu from Ash's arms and headed to the back room with Chansey. Nurse Joy. Brock trailed sadly as he watched her go. Oh, get over yourself, Brock, Misty said in annoyance. I can't. Brock trailed again in a dejected tone, causing everyone to sweat drop. After a few minutes, Nurse Joy returned with a set of Pokeballs and a weapon bell. Nurse Joy set the Pokeballs and weapon bell down and called out, Paul, your Pokemon are healed and are ready to go. The group turned to where she was looking and got a surprised look on their face. It was the purple-haired boy from earlier. Had he been there this whole time and even saw the scene with Brock? The boy known as Paul walked up to Nurse Joy. He did not even spare the group a glance despite them staring at him. He gave no indication he even met them before. "Thank you, Nurse Joy," Paul said, and giving a bow before Nurse Joy returned to the back room. Paul took his pokeballs and glared at his weeping bell. "What's wrong with you? You couldn't even knock out a single of Brock's Pokemon, and the worst part is you were knocked out after only one attack. There's no excuse why you lost with your type advantage," he said rather harshly. Paul's weeping bell looked down shamefully before Paul sighed and continued, "I captured you in the wild because you seemed like a strong Pokemon, but you have yet to show me any real power since you haven't won a single match yet. You are going to have to battle a lot better if you want to stay with me." The weeping bell looked deeply hurt and was on the verge of tears before Ash stepped in. "Hold on a second. Don't be so hard on it. Weeping bell tried its best, didn't it? As its trainer. That should be good enough for you," he said. Paul turned to Ash and glared. "I would appreciate it if you mind your own business," he said. "All I'm saying is that Pokemon always try their best for their trainers. Scolding them like that after every loss doesn't do them any favors," Ash said with a hint of anger in his voice. "That's all fine, but this weeping bell has such low stats that it should be thankful that I'm training it in the first place," Paul scowled with disdain. "What do you mean by low stats?" Serena asked. "Seriously? Didn't you know that you can scan a Pokemon with your Pokédex after you capture it to learn what moves it knows as well as its stats? That's the only way to get the best type of Pokemon around. You capture a few types of the same Pokemon and scan their stats. Keep the best one and release the others. That's how I train," Paul said. Ash grit his teeth. He couldn't believe this guy. "Well, you know what I say? Any Pokemon that you train can be strong, no matter what their stats are," he said angrily. Paul put his hands in his pockets and smirked. "What's so funny?" Ash asked. "You and your naive way of training Pokemon. If you always capture the strongest type of Pokemon around, it saves a lot of headache later on if they are already strong enough," he said. "That's terrible. You should be ashamed yourself," Misty said angrily. "How long have you been a trainer?" Paul asked Ash, completely ignoring Misty's comment. "About 11 days, Ash responded. "You should have at least captured 4 Pokemon by now. Why don't we have a Pokemon battle to figure out who's right?" Paul suggested. "You're on," Ash said with fire in his eyes, but it died down quickly. "But I only have 3 Pokemon right now instead of 4. Are you kidding me? Forget the battle. I'm out of here," Paul said with contempt. He then returned his weeping bell to its Pokeball and walked out of the Pokemon Center, not even giving the group another glance. The group was all watching him go with anger on their faces, but it was Ash who seemed affected the most. He was gritting his teeth, and his hands were shaking. Serena noticed this and realized that she had never seen him so angry before. Not even Gary Oak had ever made him this mad. "Ash," she said as she put a hand on his shoulder. Ash turned to look at her. "I'll be fine, Serena. I just can't believe someone actually trains Pokemon that way. It's horrible and not fair to the Pokemon. You saw the way he treated that weeping bell. I really feel sorry for it," he said. "He was like that when I battled him earlier, also. When I knocked out Weepin' Bell with Goedude, he just returned it and called it useless before sending out his next Pokemon. There is no doubt he is a strong trainer, but I almost didn't want to give him the Boulder Badge," Brock said. He seemed to have recovered from the Nurse Joy incident. "It's wrong," Ash said again before the group heard Nurse Joy's voice behind them. "Here are your Pokemon, everyone. All of your Pokemon are in tip-top shape," she said warmly. Pikachu smiled and hopped on Ash's shoulder. Ash smiled back and scratched it behind the ears. Thanks, Nurse Joy, Ash, Serena, and Misty responded, ignoring Brock, who seemed to get a goofy look on his face again. So are we heading to MT Moon from here? Serena asked once they put away their pokeballs. I'm ready to go if you guys are, Misty said. Me, too, Brock added. Hold on. There is something I have to do first, Ash said while stopping them. He then set Pikachu down on the ground and released his two other Pokemon, Butterfree and Pidgeotto, from their Pokeballs. Ash knelt down and gave them a serious expression. I just wanted to let you guys know that I really appreciate all of the hard work you do. Every one of you is an amazing Pokemon as well as friends to me, and I couldn't ask for anyone other than you guys. Just know that no matter what happens, I'll always be on your side. I just wanted all of you to know that, he said. Serena, Misty, and Brock watched the scene with a smile on their face. Ash had an incredible bond with his Pokemon. Following his example, Serena let out Nidoran and her Charla. Before kneeling down and expressing to them how thankful she was for their help as well. Ash and Serena's Pokemon nodded but also had a questioning look on their face. They knew their trainers appreciated them and were thankful for their words. However, they also wondered what could have made them decide to say it now of all times. If only they knew what their trainers had just witnessed. Chapter 11, The Song of Jigglypuff. It had been about 2 days since the group had left Pewter City and had their encounter with Paul. Ash had been quite upset the rest of the day but had made sure to not take it out on his friends. He had had a couple of days to cool down now and was back to his normal self. Currently, he was devouring his second bowl of the soup Brock had made for lunch. As Brock had told them, he was quite the cook. With all of the great food and chores that Brock had willingly done so far, Ash, Serena, and Misty wondered how they had survived the first week on their journey without him. He was certainly a welcome member to the team. Ash, Serena, and Misty were quite curious about the Nurse Joy incident for a while, but they had put it behind them by now. The humans in the group weren't the only ones who were enjoying great food at the moment. Their Pokemon were as well. Due to Brock's knowledge on a Pokemon's tastes, he was able to make special Pokemon food for each of their own Pokemon. Being homemade, it was a much higher quality than what was found at the Pokemart. Brock had even made Pikachu some ketchup-flavored Pokemon food. This made Pikachu quickly warm up to Brock. Man, this food is great. You've done it again, Brock. Ash praised as he finished his second bowl of soup. Serena and Misty nodded in agreement. Thanks, Ash. There is still some more if you want another helping. I'm pretty full now, Brock said. Awesome. Ash exclaimed as he went over to refill his bowl from the big pot over the fire. Admittedly, Ash didn't have the best table manners, but Serena, Misty, and Brock had gotten over it by now. At least Ash made sure there were never any leftovers so they didn't have to waste food. Once Ash was back to the table and eating his third helping, Brock decided to take out the map and spread it on the table in the middle of the group. Alright, according to this map, MT Moon isn't too far from here. We should be there by tomorrow afternoon, Brock told them. As the group looked, they could sure enough see a large mountain in the distance. Isn't MT Moon supposed to have some mysterious Pokemon in it? I also remember that scientist guy at the museum saying there were Pokemon fossils in there, Serena stated. It has both, Brock nodded to confirm Serena's question. It is also said to house the legendary Moonstone, which is said to have mysterious powers. What kind of mysterious powers? Ash asked as he took another spoonful of soup. Some Pokemon are said to respond to the power of the Moonstone once they come in contact with it and evolve, like the Nidoran family or a Jigglypuff, Brock answered. Wow, it sure would be neat to see the Moonstone, Ash said. Don't forget, Ash. It isn't like the moonstone is everywhere. It's probably hidden deep in MT Moon and carefully protected by the Pokemon there. The few people that do manage to get a small piece of the moonstone charge a lot of money for it, Misty told him. I know, but why is it so important that the moonstone be protected? Ash asked curiously. Before the rest of the group was able to come up with a decent answer, they heard a rustling inside of the bushes. The group stared at the bush until a Jigglypuff walked out. Jigglypuff was a small, pink, round Pokemon with very large, adorable eyes and short arms and feet sticking out from it. It also had a small, curly tuft on top of it. In short, it looked like a puffball with a face. It must have been attracted by the smell of Brock's cooking. Unfortunately, there wasn't any left for it. Jigglypuff, it said in a high-pitched voice. Oh, a Jigglypuff? It's so cute. Misty squealed while blushing. It sure is. Serena said happily while she took out her Pokédex to scan it. Jigglypuff, the balloon Pokemon. It captivates foes with its huge, round eyes and then lulls them to sleep by singing a soothing melody, the Pokédex said. I'm going to capture it, Misty said as she took out an empty Pokeball. Hey! What happened to you only having water-type Pokemon? Ash asked. There's nothing wrong with wanting to capture an adorable Pokemon like Jigglypuff, Misty said while giving Ash a glare. Whatever, Ash mumbled. Go, Storie. Use tackle. Misty shouted. Storie and the rest of the Pokemon were still out of their Pokeballs, so it flew forward from behind Misty and launched itself into a spin and rammed into Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff yelped in pain when the attack collided, and it was knocked backwards. The group was expecting a counterattack, but it did something completely different. It began to cry. The group of humans and even their Pokemon stared in confusion for a moment at the strange behavior before Brock finally said, I don't think this Jigglypuff really wants to fight. Right now. Serena then walked over to Jigglypuff and knelt down. We're sorry, Jigglypuff. We didn't mean to upset you, she said. Jigglypuff wiped its tears and hopped into Serena's lap. You're so cute, Serena said as she rubbed it on top of its head. Misty came over next and sat down next to Serena. I'm sorry, too, Jigglypuff. I shouldn't have attacked you like that if you didn't want to fight, she said sorrowfully. Jigglypuff looked at Misty for a moment before nodding its head and replying, Jigglypuff. I know what will make you feel better. Why don't you sing for us? Jigglypuff are supposed to have beautiful voices, Serena suggested. Jigglypuff then got out of Serena's lap and looked at the ground in embarrassment. Ah, what's wrong? You don't want to sing for us? Serena asked. Jigglypuff, it said as it shuffled its feet on the ground. Are you just shy, Jigglypuff? Misty asked next. Jigglypuff finally looked up at the group and made a slight coughing noise and then shook its head. I think Jigglypuff is saying that it can't sing, Brock suggested as he and Ash walked over to them. That's silly. Whoever heard of a Jigglypuff that can't sing? Misty said carelessly and immediately put her hands over her mouth. Sure enough, when Jigglypuff heard that, it began to cry again. Way to go, Misty, Ash muttered. Misty glared at Ash and looked at Jigglypuff again. I'm sorry again, Jigglypuff. That wasn't very nice of me to say, she said to it. Jigglypuff immediately stopped crying and jumped into Misty's lap to hug her. I still think it's cute, but who wants a Jigglypuff that can't sing? Misty muttered to herself before she realized her mistake again. Just like that, Jigglypuff immediately began to cry once more. Serena then had an idea. I'm sure you know how to sing, Jigglypuff. Maybe you just haven't done it in a while. Why don't we help you learn how to sing again? She suggested. Jigglypuff. It squealed happily as it jumped out of Misty's lap and ran to Serena to hug her. The group had now returned all of their Pokemon except for Pikachu and had packed up their supplies before making a makeshift stage for Jigglypuff. It consisted of a few large, flat rocks for the stage and a couple of flashlights leaned against the rocks to imitate the lights. They were hard to see because it was daytime, but it was the best the group could do at the moment. Okay. Listen to the notes I sing, Jigglypuff, Serena said as she took a deep breath. She hadn't sang in a while and hoped she didn't embarrass herself. Do, re, mu, fa, so, Serena sang softly with her eyes closed. She then opened them and smiled at Jigglypuff. See how I control my voice and breathing as I sing the notes. You have a very pretty voice, Serena, Ash praised after she finished. Serena turned to Ash and smiled. She was just singing a few short notes right now to help Jigglypuff but was still very pleased that Ash liked it. Thank you, Ash. Maybe I should sing for you sometime, she said as she gave him a wink. Heh. That would be great, Ash said while scratching his cheek. Brock looked back and forth between the two and smiled to himself. He also recalled how Ash and Serena acted around each other at his gym. I wonder, he thought. Puyoof. Jigglypuff said in annoyance to draw the group's attention back to it. Oh. I'm sorry. Let me show you again. Serena said in embarrassment as she went over the notes again. Now you try. Jigglypuff then opened its mouth and tried to sing, but all that came out seemed to be a gagging sound of some sort. It then bowed its head in shame. Pien Kahu, Pikachu sang. It wanted to attempt to sing also since everyone else was. Hey. That's pretty good, Pikachu, Ash said while giving it a smile. Pikachu, it said as it rubbed the back of its neck. Hey. You're hurting Jigglypuff's feelings, Misty scolded Ash when she saw Jigglypuff narrow its eyes. Jigglypuff then went over to Pikachu and gave it swift kick in the behind before darting back to the stage. Chuyu, Pikachu moaned as it rubbed its bottom. It then prepared to shock Jigglypuff, but Ash quickly grabbed it before it let loose its electricity. Instead, Ash was shocked. Once Ash recovered about a minute later, the group continued to think as to what they could do about Jigglypuff's situation. The problem clearly wasn't that Jigglypuff just simply had a bad voice. It seemed to go a little deeper than that, like its throat was sore or something. I think I got it, Brock suddenly spoke up, causing the group to turn to him. There is actually a fruit that grows around this area that has special healing powers. What do you mean? Ash asked. The juices that are in these fruits have the power to heal one's throat if it's sore or tired. If Jigglypuff eats one, it might be able to sing, Brock answered. So let's go find one, Serena said enthusiastically as she picked up Jigglypuff to walk down the path. The rest of the group followed. Ah! Here's one. Brock stated as he went up to a tree that had several of the fruits growing on it. He then reached out and plucked one from one of the trees and held it in front of Jigglypuff. Go ahead, Jigglypuff. Take a bite, Serena encouraged gently as Jigglypuff reached out with its small arms to take the fruit from Brock. It then bit into the fruit and began to chew. Jigglypuff! It exclaimed happily as it swallowed. It clearly liked the taste. It then quickly ate the rest of the fruit. Serena then set Jigglypuff on the ground as the group waited expectantly. Jigglypuff then took a deep breath and tested its voice. Jigglypuff, Jigglypuff, it sang. Its voice sounded top-notch now. That was great. Way to go. Serena praised as she and the rest of the group cheered. Jigglypuff then looked at Pikachu a short distance away who was cheering for it also. Despite this, Jigglypuff still wanted a little payback. It also wanted to rub it in Pikachu's face. That it could sing now. Jigglypuff went over to Pikachu and delivered another kick in the behind before running over to hide behind Serena. The group sighed at Jigglypuff's antics while Pikachu glared at Jigglypuff. It wasn't going to try to shock it again after what happened last time. Jigglypuff was also hiding behind Serena, so Pikachu supposed Jigglypuff would just get away with it, for now. Why don't you go ahead and sing for us, Jigglypuff? Serena suggested while everyone gathered around it. Jigglypuff nodded its head, closed its eyes, and began to sing. Its voice sounded absolutely beautiful. The group smiled as they heard the song. Everyone was right. Jigglypuff really do have excellent voices. Ash, Serena, Misty, Brock, and Pikachu felt their eyes getting droopy. They thought the song sounded so peaceful, so relaxing, so thud. Everyone listening to Jigglypuff hit the ground and fell asleep. Despite the seemingly painful landing, the group stayed asleep through the rest of Jigglypuff's song. Hearing the sound, Jigglypuff abruptly quit singing and opened its eyes. To its great shock and anger, everyone was asleep. Jigglypuff certainly didn't think it was a boring singer. It thought that was a really inconsiderate thing to do. It went over and began to shake everyone in an attempt to wake them up. It was no good. Everyone was still asleep. Jigglypuff wasn't going to take this. It went over to one of their backpacks and found a marker inside. It would show them. Ash groggily opened his eyes and gave a yawn. "Ah, that was a good nap," he said to himself. He heard stirring beside and turned towards the others in the group. They all had their faces turned away from him as they slowly sat up and also gave a yawn and stretch. "Did you guys have a good nap also?" Ash asked them. Serena nodded sleepily before she and everyone else turned to Ash. Ash then let out a loud gasp. Oddly enough, everyone else did as well. "What happened to your face?" they all yelled in surprise. "What do you mean?" they all asked again at the same time. It was then the group realized that all of their faces had something wrong with them. They all had silly little marker doodles drawn on them, and it looked terrible. The humans and Pikachu quickly wiped their faces free of the marker drawings and looked around for the culprit. They then spotted Jigglypuff a short distance away, giving them all a glare. "Did you do this to us, Jigglypuff?" Misty asked it. "Puff." It responded with a curt nod. "Why did you that to us?" Misty asked again. "Puff." Jigglypuff puffed itself up and gave an even more intense glare as if asking, "Do you seriously not know?" "It must be because we fell asleep while it was singing," Serena realized. "I wouldn't be happy either if someone fell asleep while I was performing for them." "We're sorry we fell asleep, Jigglypuff," Misty said apologetically. "Do you forgive us?" Jigglypuff seemed to think for a moment before it softened its glare and nodded its head. "I have an idea," said Brock. "Why don't we let it try to sing to our Pokemon? Surely one of them will stay awake." "That's a good idea," the rest agreed. A few minutes later, the group had all of their Pokemon out in front of Jigglypuff as it began to sing to them. Ash, Brock, Serena, Misty, and Pikachu had gone behind a tree in case they fell asleep again. Once Jigglypuff had finished, it saw that every single one of their Pokemon had fallen asleep as well. Falling asleep once was one thing, but twice was inexcusable. It was very upset now. A few minutes later, the group came out from behind the tree and sighed when they saw that all of their Pokemon had fallen asleep and had marker doodles all over their faces. They quickly wiped off the drawings from their Pokemon's faces and returned them to their Pokeballs. There was no need to wake them and let them know Jigglypuff had messed with them. They then turned back to Jigglypuff and saw it had puffed itself up again and looked even angrier than the last time. There had to be a way to fix this problem. "What do you guys think it is about Jigglypuff's song that is making us fall asleep all of the time?" Ash asked the rest of them. "My guess is that Jigglypuff have special powers in their voices," Brock suggested. "Despite their beautiful voices, Jigglypuff are never used to perform in concerts as singers. Because their song always seems to make people sleep. It is supposed to be used as a defensive measure rather than entertainment. So the only song Jigglypuff are able to sing is a lullaby? Serena asked. Yes and no. I don't believe it's the song itself that is making us fall asleep, but the Pokemon it's coming from, Brock said with his arms crossed. So no matter what Jigglypuff sings to us, we will fall asleep no matter what. Ash guessed. Pretty much, Brock confirmed. Upon hearing this, Jigglypuff's eyes began to tear up, and it looked like it was about to cry again. What if it wasn't actually Jigglypuff singing the song to us? Serena asked. What do you mean, Serena? Ash wondered. We fall asleep because of the special powers that come from Jigglypuff. What if we listen to a recording of the song rather than Jigglypuff itself? Maybe we could stay awake. Like that, Serena suggested. I get what you're saying, said Brock. We can have Jigglypuff sing into the recorder and listen to the recording once it's done. Since it's just the voice rather than Jigglypuff, we might stay awake. It's definitely worth a shot. Serena then turned to Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff, will you please give us one more chance to listen to your song? She asked, then thought, if only so we don't get our faces drawn on again. Jigglypuff seemed to think for a moment before it sighed and agreed. Hold on. Do we even have a tape recorder with us? Misty suddenly asked. I have one, Ash spoke up. It was actually one of the million things my mom packed for me before I started my journey, though I have no idea why. Sounds good. Let's try it, Serena said. A couple of minutes later, the group had a tape recorder ready, and Serena placed it in front of Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff, when I press the record button, I want you to start singing. Once you are done, I need you to press the end button, which is this one right here, in case we are asleep. Serena instructed while she gestured to each of the buttons. Jigglypuff then nodded to signify that it was ready. Okay, Jigglypuff. Make this your best song yet, Serena said as she pushed the record button. Jigglypuff then began to sing. The melody was just as beautiful as it had been the first couple of times. Also, just like the last time the group was starting to feel sleepy. They made sure to sit down and listen this time instead of stand up so they wouldn't just fall over again. They finally became so drowsy from the song, they couldn't take it anymore. And fell asleep once more. Once Jigglypuff was done, it saw that the group had fallen asleep again, much to its disappointment and sadness. It got over the urge to draw on their faces again and pressed the end button on the recorder as Serena had told it to. It really hoped they could at least stay awake through the recording, or Jigglypuff didn't know what it would do. The group woke up once again a few minutes later and immediately looked at each other to make sure Jigglypuff hadn't drawn on them again. They sighed with relief seeing how that wasn't the case this time. Jigglypuff was surprisingly waiting patiently by the tape recorder for the group to wake up. It didn't look angry this time. If anything, Jigglypuff looked nervous. Everyone then walked up to Jigglypuff and the tape recorder and knelt beside it. So, are you guys ready? Serena asked. Everyone nodded in response. She then took a deep breath and pushed the play button. They were all hoping this would work just as much as Jigglypuff did. The group then began to hear Jigglypuff's voice over the recorder. Despite the recorder being slightly aged, it still did an excellent job at the audio. It sounded as if they were really listening to Jigglypuff's song. Everyone was waiting anxiously to see if they were going to get sleepy. So far, so good. The recording continued to play, and no one was getting sleepy yet. Jigglypuff closed its own eyes at the tension. It really didn't want to see anyone fall asleep again. The recording finally ended after a few minutes. Not hearing anything, Jigglypuff feared the worst. It slowly opened one eye and saw that Pikachu was still awake. Filled with hope, Jigglypuff opened its eyes fully now and saw everyone was still awake. Everyone then broke out into applause. "Bravo! Bravo, Jigglypuff!" They all cheered. Jigglypuff was extremely happy. It took a few bows in front of everyone. It certainly looked pleased. A recording may not have been as good as the real thing, but as long as it was its voice and everyone stayed awake, that was good enough for Jigglypuff. The group had already packed up their things. It was only about an hour until sunset and the group still wanted to get a little more traveling done today so they could still be at MT Moon by tomorrow. "Well, Jigglypuff, I guess this is where we all part ways. I wish you luck with your singing," Serena said with a smile as she reached down to rub it on the head again. "Jiggly," it said while tilting to side and giving Serena a questioning look. "You will be just fine now, Jigglypuff." "Good luck with everything," Misty said. "Goodbye, Jigglypuff," Ash and Brock said. "Pkaa." Pikachu waved while on top of Ash's right shoulder. With that, the group turned around and continued on their way, but they heard footsteps behind them. They turned around and saw that Jigglypuff was following them. "What's the matter, Jigglypuff?" Serena asked as she went over to it. "Puff. Puff," it said in a sad tone. "You don't want us to leave?" Serena asked, receiving a nod from the Pokémon. "You know, Jigglypuff, we all get along well and like each other. Why don't you come with us?" Brock suggested. "Jigglypuff," it said happily. "Now we can listen to your performances anytime you want us to," Serena smiled, which caused Jigglypuff to become even happier. "That's great, but who can be Jigglypuff's trainer?" Ash asked. They each pondered over the answer, but didn't need to for long as Jigglypuff made the decision for them. Jigglypuff leaped at Serena and gave her a hug. "Oh. You want me to be your trainer, Jigglypuff?" Serena asked. Jigglypuff nodded enthusiastically. "It only makes sense, Serena. You were the one that helped Jigglypuff and talked to it the most out of all of us," Ash told her. "In that case, I would be very happy to be your trainer, Jigglypuff," Serena said happily. "Oh, I wish I could have trained it," Misty sulked slightly. Jigglypuff then looked up at Serena and smiled, but it was soon replaced with a mischievous look. Serena smiled back somewhat slyly as well. "Oh, I see. You want to battle now, don't you?" she asked. Jigglypuff nodded and jumped out of Serena's arms and ran the opposite direction until it thought it was a suitable distance away from Serena. "You're on," Serena said. She then thought about which Pokémon she should use. Charla no doubt had battled before so it would have the advantage, but she also figured that she hasn't really battled with Nidoran yet, and it could use the practice. "I choose you, Nidoran," Serena said as she threw her Pokeball and released it. Nidoran then ran in front of Serena and stood a short distance away from Jigglypuff. "All right, Nidoran. Let's do this. Use Fury Swipes," Serena called. Nidoran ran forward ready to swipe at Jigglypuff with its sharp claws, but Jigglypuff was ready and jumped up into the air and began to float out of reach of Nidoran. Jigglypuff then decided it was time for a counter-attack. It floated down at a much faster speed than one would think and struck Nidoran with one of its short arms. It had used a pound attack. Not giving Nidoran a chance to retaliate, it began to mercilessly slap it continuously, a double slap attack. "It's okay. Try to shake it off, Nidoran," Serena said once Jigglypuff finished its attacks. Nidoran shook itself slightly and went to attack Jigglypuff, but it was already floating in the air again. "Since we can't reach it right now, let's use a long-range attack, Nidoran. Use Poison Sting," Serena commanded. Nidoran then shot a barrage of glowing needles from the small horn on its head, but once again, Jigglypuff dodged them due to its quicker than expected speed in the air. Jigglypuff definitely has the advantage in the air. I need to find a place for Nidoran to take cover behind so Jigglypuff won't see it, Serena thought. She then noticed off to the side that there were a few trees to the side of the field they were in. Take cover behind those trees, Nidoran, and constantly change your position so Jigglypuff can't find you, Serena called. Once Nidoran had run into the small group of trees, Jigglypuff was unable to see Nidoran anymore. Even though it was in the air, the branches of the trees made it difficult to see. The balloon Pokémon had no choice but to deflate itself and search for Nidoran on foot. It followed Nidoran into the small set of trees and began to search, but it didn't see Nidoran sneaking up on it from behind. Then when Nidoran got close enough. Quick, Nidoran! Poison sting! Serena called. Nidoran then sprang forward and shot the glowing needles right into Jigglypuff's backside, causing it cry out in pain. Use your fury swipes before it can recover, Serena continued. Nidoran then began swipe continuously at Jigglypuff with its claws, but Jigglypuff pushed through the fury swipes and struck Nidoran with another pound which sent it flying into the air. Serena saw that Nidoran twisted itself into an upright position in midair and knew it was ready for another command. All right, Nidoran. Poison sting, she called. Nidoran then launched its needles at Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff was too slow to dodge the attack on the ground, and thus, was struck by the attack. It then fell over onto the ground on its back and Serena saw her chance. That was great, Nidoran. Pokeball, go! She cried as she threw the Pokeball forward. The Pokeball sailed forward and hit Jigglypuff dead on. Jigglypuff was sucked into the Pokeball, and then it fell to the ground and began to shake. The ball finally stopped and dinged, signifying Jigglypuff had been successfully captured. Serena then ran over to the Pokeball to pick it up and held it out in front of her. All right? I caught a Jigglypuff, she exclaimed. She then pet Nidoran for a job well done and returned it to her Pokeball. That was great, Serena. We now have 3 Pokémon each. Once we get some training in, you will be in great shape for the Battle Chateau in Cerulean City, Ash told her. Yep. MT Moon is supposed to have some interesting Pokémon in there, too. I can't wait to see them. I bet we will get some experience there as well. Serena agreed. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go to MT Moon, Ash said enthusiastically as he took off running with Pikachu and Serena not too far behind him. Hey! Wait for us! Brock and Misty called out as they tried to keep up. Both Ash and Serena were greatly encouraged by their careers as Pokémon trainers by now. Ash had caught 2 other Pokémon since he started his journey as well as gotten his first batch. Serena had also caught 2 Pokémon and felt like she was a much better battler by thinking up strategies. She had been unable to participate in a Battle Chateau challenge since Viridian City, but she knew she would get her chance soon. It was definitely looking like a bright future for the 2. They were both eager to get to MT Moon as soon as possible to see the mysterious things there. If only they knew that things weren't quite peaceful at the mountain right now. Chapter 12, Prepare for Trouble at MT Moon. The group was now standing in front of MT Moon. Because Ash and Serena decided to run to MT Moon for the rest of yesterday, they were still able to make it by the afternoon. Today, Ash, Serena, Misty, Brock and Pikachu stood in awe at the size of MT Moon. It looked big from afar, but it looked even bigger up close. Wow! MT Moon is a lot bigger than I thought, Serena stated. How long do you guys think it will take to get through here? Ash asked. I would say it will at least take the rest of the day. We should try to get through here as fast as we can. Spending the night inside of a cave with wild Pokémon doesn't seem like the best idea there is, Brock replied. Ash turned away from Brock as he continued to appraise MT Moon. This was one of the many obstacles and tests trainers had to endure in order to continue on their journey. He had no doubt that Gary and Leaf had already been through here. If they could do it, so could he and his friends. He might even be able to catch some more Pokemon while they were in there. Well, we aren't going to get through MT Moon any faster by just standing here. We might as well get going, Ash said as he began to make his way into the nearby entrance to the cave, the rest of the group following suit. As soon as the group entered the cave, they were met by a lot of noise. The noise sounded like a bunch flapping wings. The group followed to where the noise led them. They gasped when they saw a horde of Zubat flying around and harassing a lone Clefairy. Clefairy was a small, pink Pokemon that resembled a fairy. It had a large round body and short stubby arms and legs. It had two small wings sticking out of its back. Its short, pink, pointy ears were tipped with black. Zubat was a dark blue, bat-like Pokemon that had no visible eyes and a circular mouth with sharp teeth. It had also had purple wings and long, almost insect-like legs. The Clefairy was currently hunched and covering its head with its eyes shut as it tried its best to shield itself from the incoming Zubat. They were relentless, however, and continued to attack despite there being no sign of aggression from the Clefairy. Zubat and Clefairy, Ash and Serena said to themselves as they looked up the Pokemon in their Pokédexes. Zubat, the bat Pokemon. It emits ultrasonic waves when it flies, and they act as a sonar to check for objects in its way. Clefairy, the fairy Pokemon. Its magical and cute appeal has many admirers. It is very rare and only found in specific areas, the Pokédexes said. Oh no. We need to help that Clefairy, Serena said urgently. Right. Ash agreed as Pikachu ran forward. Serena sent out Charla. Pikachu, use Thundershock to break it up. Ash ordered. Use your Ember, Charla. Serena ordered also. Both Pokemon launched their respective attacks. The attacks were able to hit some of the Zubat while just passed between others. Regardless, all of the Zubat were startled by the attacks and fled away back to other parts of the cave. Ash could have swore he saw Brock's arm move a couple of times out of the corner of his eye, but he hadn't sent out any Pokemon. The distressed Clefairy opened its eyes and looked around at the sudden halt of the attack. It then looked at the group of people and Pokemon in front of it curiously. That's really strange to see a Clefairy at the edge of MT Moon like this, Brock stated. Clefairy are normally very rare and very shy. Some people never see the Clefairy at all as they pass through here. It's so cute. Hello, Clefairy, Misty said as she gave a smile and approached it. The Clefairy immediately got a frightened expression on its face and ran off as fast as it could until it disappeared into another part of the cave. Wait. Misty called, but it was too late. Misty. As I mentioned before, Clefairy are really shy of humans. You can't just walk right up to one like you can with a few other Pokemon, Brock told her with a slight scolding tone. Right. I guess I got carried away, Misty said sheepishly while scratching her cheek. Hey. I just now noticed something. Do you guys think it's strange that there are all of these man-made lights here along the cave? I was almost sure we would need a lantern in here, Serena pointed out. You're right. These lights are certainly damaging the natural habitat of the Pokemon here. Even the scientists that research here know better than to install lights like this in MT Moon. That must be why those Zubat we just saw were so agitated and attacking a defenseless Clefairy. They feel threatened by everything, Brock realized. So who do you think is installing these lights? Serena asked. I don't know, but I sense something bad is going on here. We should continue on through here. Maybe we will find the answer along the way, Ash said. The rest of them nodded and continued on down the path. It didn't take the group long to figure out that MT Moon wasn't a straight path like they had hoped. It turned out to be a regular maze. There were several corridors that branched off only to lead to more corridors or a dead end. Despite the lights were clearly bad for the Pokemon habitat, they were almost thankful for them so they could at least see where they were going. Hey, Brock. You wouldn't happen to have a map for the inside of MT Moon, would you? Ash asked him. He didn't see how they would be able to make it out of MT Moon without one. No, but I think I have someone who might be able to help, Brock said as he pulled out a Pokeball. Your Onix and Geodude can navigate through MT Moon? Ash asked skeptically. No. Not them. It's my brand new Pokemon, Brock replied as he pushed the button on the Pokeball. Everyone looked in surprise when the Pokemon inside was revealed to be Zubat. When did you get a Zubat, Brock? Serena asked. Brock smiled. I captured it while you two were ordering your Pokemon to help the Clefairy. I managed to get one just before they got away, he said. That explains those movements I saw out of the corner of my eye, Ash thought. Since this Zubat has lived in this cave, it might be able to help us through, Brock reasoned. Will you show us the way, Zubat? The Zubat gave the equivalent of a nod and began to fly ahead of the group. Despite the lights messing up its sense of direction a little bit, Zubat turned out to be quite the navigator. The group would come to a fork in the pathways, the Zubat would pause for a second to adjust its sense of direction, then choose one, and the group would follow it. The group believed they would be able to make it through MT Moon, after all. Hey! Do you guys hear voices? Ash asked after the group had been walking for about 15 minutes. I did. It seems to be coming from over there. Maybe they can help us out of the cave, Serena said as she pointed down one of the corridors. The group began to walk along the path until they were able to hear what the voices were saying. Brock returned his Zubat so the wing flapping wouldn't alert the owners to the voices. Soon, the voices' owners came into view to reveal three men in solid black uniforms and black hats. They were crouching down with their backs facing the group. They appeared to have a pile of fossils in front of them. Judging by what they were saying, they were up to no good. The group pressed themselves against the wall and hid in the shadows as they listened in on the three men. Het. We are going to make a killing off of the fossils we find in this cave, one said. You said it? I know our squadron leaders said to bring all of the fossils we find to them, but what makes them so special? They only want all the fossils to make it look like they were ones who found them instead of us. It's all about winning favor with the boss to them, another replied. I'm sure they wouldn't notice the difference if we kept a few fossils for ourselves and only gave them a few. They aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, said the third one. I'll tell what would really make Team Rocket some big bucks, finding that legendary moonstone, the second one spoke up again. Yeah. If we find it, we should report it to the leaders, the first one said. Are you an idiot? If we report the moonstone to those guys, they will take all of the glory for themselves. The third man scolded. Let's just go and find them to report what we've gotten so far. They then turned around, and Ash saw their faces. It was those three suspicious men Ash saw at the Pewter Museum. The group also got a good look at their uniform and saw the large red R on the shirt. They were definitely members of Team Rocket. They must have been the ones to set all these lights along the cave walls. We should go back and get the police to tell them what's going on here, Ash whispered as he looked at the rest of the group. The group nodded and turned to hurry away but bumped right into another man who was also wearing black and had a big red R on his shirt. Well. What do we have here? The Rocket member smirked as he crossed his arms. Chuyu, Pikachu glared while it sparked its cheeks at the man. What's going on? One of the other Rocket members asked as the other three came up behind the group. They had been alerted by the other member speaking. Hey! It looks like those brats were spying on us. How much did you hear? Another said angrily. We weren't listening in. We're just lost, Ash said nervously as he rubbed the back of his neck. Serena, Misty, and Brock copied his movements. You're lying. The man yelled accusingly. Het. It wouldn't matter if you're lost or not. We can't let you get away now that you have seen us, the rocket member the group had run into said in a sinister tone. I guess we don't have choice. We'll have to battle our way out of this, Ash said as reached for Butterfree's pokeball. Brock, Serena, and Misty reached for their pokeballs as well. You brats think you can beat us? You got another thing coming, another rocket member said as he and his teammates got out their own pokeballs. The 4-team rocket members then surrounded the group. It looked like a battle was about to break out, but everyone was interrupted by the sound of flapping wings again. They looked around until they saw another swarm of Zubat heading their way. They even had Golbat in the group this time. They must have been alerted by all the shouting that had just taken place, and they didn't look happy. Oh, no. We need to get out of here. We don't have enough Pokemon to take care of Team Rocket and these wild Pokemon also. Brock said urgently as he began to run with Ash close behind him. The Rocket members were startled by the sudden dash from Ash and Brock, but had recovered by the time Serena and Misty were trying to run past them. Not so fast, girlies. A Rocket member yelled as he and another Rocket member grabbed Serena and Misty while the others swiped their Pokeballs. Ash! Help! Serena cried as she and Misty were being dragged off. No! Serena! Misty! Ash called as he and Brock turned around to run towards them. By then the group of Zubat and Golbat had descended upon the group and were making it very hard to get any movement done. The Rocket members seemed to be having their own troubles fighting off the swarm and keeping the two girls from struggling as well. I'm sick of this. Coughing, go. Use smoke screen. A Rocket member said in an annoyed tone as he released the Pokemon. The coughing launched the smoke screen from its mouth and completely covered the surrounding area with smoke. This made it very hard for Ash and Brock to see as well as the Zubat and Golbat that were flying around them. Ash knew he had to act now because Serena and Misty's yells were getting fainter and fainter. Pidgeotto. Use Gust to blow away the smoke, Ash said between coughs as he released his Pokemon. Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto called and began flapping its wings. Soon the smoke had spread out enough to where Ash and Brock could see again, but they still had the swarm of Zubat and Golbat that were still harassing them. Pikachu. I know there are a lot, but we don't have a choice. Use your Thunder Shock, Ash said. Pikachu. Pikachu yelled as it began to release tons of electricity. Fortunately, despite the large number, the Zubat and Golbat were very timid. They panicked once they saw the electricity and flew off and disappeared into another part of the cave. Ash returned Pidgeotto and looked around. He grimaced when he saw that the Team Rocket members were already gone, along with Serena and Misty. Serena! Misty! Ash called out, but got no response. He then sank to his knees. He couldn't believe Serena was taken by those crooks. Don't worry, Ash. We'll find them. They couldn't have gotten far, Brock said reassuringly as he put a hand on Ash's shoulder. How are we supposed to find them? They could be anywhere in this cave. What's worse, they are with those rocket guys. We certainly don't have time to go and find help. Ash! Exclaimed. Slow down, Ash. Don't forget. I have a Zubat now. They have supersonic hearing and can pick up on faint sounds. You also have Pikachu who should know Serena and Misty's sense by now, Brock replied. He then sent out his Zubat again. Right. Pikachu. Do you have any lead on where Serena and Misty are at? Ash asked the rodent. Pikachu began sniffing into the damp, cave air. It was faint, but it finally picked up on something and turned toward Ash and Brock. Pika-Pie? Pikachu, it said as it took off down a path with Ash, Brock, and Zubat close behind it. What are you going to do with us? Misty asked in a worried tone. She and Serena were currently sitting against the cave walls and were being tied up by two of the Rocket members. Another was setting their Pokeballs some distance away while the last one was pulling out a walkie-talkie and began to speak into it. That depends on how good you will be while we take care of things here, the Rocket grunt replied. We won't hurt you too bad, at least, if you keep your mouths shut. So does that mean you will let us go, eventually? Misty asked hopefully. He. Yeah, that sounds good. Eventually. Like in the next 50 years. The Rocket member laughed. We'll probably take you back to headquarters and keep you as our prisoners there. We can't just simply let you go free and tell the police where we are at. Just you wait. Ash will come to save us. Serena said with determination. Your little boyfriend can come if he likes. We'll just capture him just like we did you. The Rocket member replied again. Serena blushed at the Rocket grunt calling Ash her boyfriend, but quickly shook it away. Ash is a lot stronger than you think. He and Brock can take care of the likes of you. She shouted. Yeah. Whatever, kid, the Rocket grunt scoffed as the grunt who was on the walkie-talkie walked up behind him. I just called our squadron leaders. They will be here in a minute, he reported. We sure have a lot of fossils. I say we hide some from them so we can at least get some glory from the boss also. One suggested. His team members nodded in agreement. They then went over to the pile of fossils and began to stuff a lot into their bags. The Rocket grunts had just finished when their squadron leaders appeared from another part of MT Moon. Serena and Misty gasped. Those three looked very familiar and were in white Team Rocket uniforms. It was Jessie, James, and Meowth. So, you four have some good news for us, I hope, Jessie asked as she walked up to the four grunts. Yes, ma'am. One saluted. We have found a bunch of fossils for you and are giving you every one just like ordered. Very good. Any word on finding that giant moonstone yet? James inquired. Unfortunately, not yet, the same one replied. We did, however, pick up two pesky kids who were spying on us. They are right over there against the wall, tied up. Really? Jessie asked curiously as their attention was diverted to Serena and Misty. Their eyes instantly lit up with recognition. Hey! You guys are two of those twerps we battled at the Viridian Pokemon Center and the forest. Meowth cried. Well. Not so high and mighty now that you are all tied up, are you? Jessie smirked as she, James, and Meowth approached them. I think we remember telling you twerps that if you ever crossed our paths again, you would really regret it, and what better time than now since you're helpless, James said. Evilly. Serena and Misty shrank back a little under the three's intimidating glare. They normally wouldn't be afraid of these three, but they had no Pokemon and were tied up right now. What do you guys think we should do with them? Meowth asked Jessie and James. I'm thinking we cause them a world amount of pain like they caused us. Jessie answered. We'll show them how wrong it is to keep meddling in Team Rocket's affairs. First, you two will tell us where that twerp with the Pikachu is at. He seems to be with you a lot, and something tells me he is here at MT Moon, James demanded. We don't know where he is right now. Serena answered honestly. She did hope he was on his way to save them, though. Liar! Jessie accused as she went up and actually slapped Serena across the face. Serena's face jerked to the side, and her eyes welled up with tears after the slap. Jessie had slapped her pretty hard. We'll ask you again. Where's the twerp with the Pikachu? Jesse asked dangerously. We already told you. We don't know. Misty spoke up this time. The Team Rocket trio continued to glare at Misty and Serena. They clearly didn't believe them. James spoke up next. You had the chance to tell us freely, but now I'm thinking we may have to beat it out of you, he said. Go coughing. Go Akans. Jesse ordered. Both Pokemon emerged from the Pokeballs and also stared menacingly at Serena and Misty. They were both now really frightened. I'm tired of playing games with you twerps. You have humiliated us enough. You have one last chance to tell us where that little boy is at, or we will order our Pokemon to attack, Jesse growled. Coughing and Akans leaned back while Meowth extended his claws for emphasis. Serena and Misty were both trembling violently now out of fear. They were actually too scared now to even talk. Unfortunately, Jesse, James, and Meowth took their inability to talk for stubbornness. All three of them narrowed their eyes. Very well. We've run out of patience. Akans attack. Jesse ordered. You too, coughing. James added. Serena shut her eyes tight. She was so sure Ash would be able to be here in time. He didn't make it, though. She and Misty would now have to endure a great amount of torture. For who knows how long. Tears began to stream down her face, not because of the torture that was coming, but because Ash didn't come for her. Both Pokemon and Meowth were just about to spring forward when they heard a voice cry, Pikachu, Thunder Shock. Butterfree, Psychic, and another voice shout, Go-A-Dude, Rock. Throw. Everyone looked at the sound of the voices to see a stream of attacks heading towards all of the Rocket members. Akans, coughing, and Meowth were knocked away by a series of boulders. Jesse and James got the brunt of the thunder shock while the four Rocket grunts were blasted back by a wave of psychic energy. Serena and Misty looked to see none other than Ash, Brock, and Pikachu running towards them. Don't any of you dare harm them! Ash shouted. He and Brock then reached the two tied-up girls and began to untie them. Ash and Pikachu untied Serena while Brock untied Misty. Hey, sorry we took so long to find you, Brock apologized. We would have been here sooner, but because of the coughing smoke screen still lingering in some places, it made it hard for Pikachu to pick up on your scent at times. Misty let out a very grateful smile towards Brock after he finished untying her while Serena let tears freely fall from her face, but this time from sheer happiness. Ash and Brock had come for them, after all. She almost felt ashamed for even believing for 1 second that Ash wouldn't make it in time. Serena. You're crying. Did they hurt you? Ash asked worriedly after he finished untying her. No, Ash. I'm fine. You two came just in time. I'm just so happy you came for us, Serena said through tears. You bet. I told before. I'm never leaving my friends behind. Ash said with a smile as he gave her a thumbs up. He then turned to give a very deep glare at Team Rocket. Misty. Serena. Go get your Pokeballs while they are dazed. I sense a battle coming, Brock said seriously. Right, they both replied as they ran towards the other side of the corridor to retrieve them. Misty and Serena then clipped them to their belts. Growling, I'm really getting tired of you twerps, Jessie growled as she and James stood up from the thunder shock. Akans, coughing, and Meowth came up from behind them as well. As the Rocket grunts. We shall recite our motto and leave you stunned. James shouted. To protect the world from devastation. To unite all people within our Meowth. Forget the motto this time. Let's just get M. Jessie and James initially glared at Meowth for interrupting their motto, but realized that it made sense to skip it this time. They then focused on the group again. If it's a battle you want, it's a battle you will get, James said angrily. He then turned to the grunts who were just standing there. "Well, what are you four waiting for? Release your Pokemon." The four grunts snapped back to reality and released their Pokemon even though they only had one each. They consisted of a Coughing, two had a Raticate, and one had a Grimer. Ash and Serena took out their Pokédexes to scan Raticate and Grimer. Raticate, the evolved form of Rattata. It gnaws on anything with its tough fangs. It can even topple concrete buildings by gnawing on them. Grimer, the sludge Pokemon. It appears in filthy areas and thrives by sucking up polluted sludge around it, the Pokédexes said. "Well, you guys want to use all your Pokemon against us, then so will we," Ash said as he and everyone else released all of their Pokemon, except Brock's Onix as it was too big for the corridor. Despite that, Team Rocket outnumbered the group in people. Ash, Serena, Misty, and Brock outnumbered Team Rocket in Pokemon, and that's what counted. Team Rocket wasn't deterred by this disadvantage and ordered all of their Pokemon to attack anyway. The ensuing battle was mass chaos, to say the least. Every Pokemon was attacking the other on the opposing side. Attacks were hitting the cave walls, causing them to crack. Lights were being broken. Some Pokemon were even attacking their teammate by mistake, mostly on Team Rocket's side, due to all of the confusion. The disorganization was causing the cave corridor to begin to collapse. Ash realized this and knew they had to end the battle quickly. Pidgeotto, Butterfree. Use the strongest gust attack you can muster to blow all of Team Rocket and their Pokemon away, Ash shouted. Pidgeotto and Butterfree complied and began to flap their wings as hard as they could. The two gusts combined were too much for the Team Rocket members to take. They were lifted off the ground and sent flying down the cave corridor and out of sight. The cave passage continued to shake for a few more moments before finally coming to a halt. The group let out a sigh of relief, but then frowned at the damage the battle had done to the area. "Look at this mess. We've totally destroyed this area," Misty said sadly. "It wasn't our fault," Brock said, trying to comfort her. "Team Rocket would have messed up this area a lot more if we hadn't fought back." "Hey, look. Those Rocket members left their bags with fossils in them," Serena said while pointing. "You're right. We should go ahead and take these bags with us and turn them into the police in Cerulean City," Ash suggested as they went over and bent down in front of the bags to pick them up. Once they finished, and each one was carrying a respective backpack on their back, the group planned their next move. "I think we should go chase after Team Rocket to fully get them out of this cave. If we don't, they are just going to cause more mayhem here," Ash suggested. The group agreed and headed off deeper into Mt. Moon in the direction Team Rocket had gone after returning their Pokemon for easier travel. After the group had continued running for a while, they were beginning to wonder where Team Rocket could have gone. Unlike the rest of Mt. Moon, this was a straight path, so it isn't like the group made a wrong turn. It was then that they saw a small bit of light and an exit ahead of them. Thinking that was the way out of Mt. Moon, the group hurried towards it. Team Rocket might have gotten away, but at least that meant they were gone from Mt. Moon, also. It was soon the group discovered they were dead wrong. The corridor did indeed lead to outside, but it wasn't the exit to Mt. Moon. It exited into a circular area about 50 feet in diameter from all sides with an opening at the top where the moon shone. They had apparently been in Mt. Moon longer than they thought due to the conflict with Team Rocket. The group was surprised to see how many Clefairy there were in this area considering how rare they were. Unfortunately, they were all being cornered by Team Rocket. All the Clefairy had frightened expressions on their faces as Team Rocket stared menacingly down at them. What got the group's attention the most was what was in the center of the room. It was the legendary Moonstone. The group gasped once they realized it was them who inadvertently led Team Rocket to the Moonstone. You crooks, leave those Clefairy and the Moonstone alone. Ash shouted at them. Team Rocket turned towards the group now and glared at them. Or else what? Do want to have a Pokemon battle with us again, twerp? Don't forget all the Clefairy are in this room. You might accidentally hurt them, too, James replied. The group gritted their teeth in annoyance and glared at Team Rocket. They didn't want to admit it, but Team Rocket was right. Thankfully, we aren't that honorable. We need to take back our fossils from you, anyway, Jessie said while grinning evilly. Go Ekans. Go Coughing. James called. Meowth also came forward and extended its claws while the 4 rocket grunts continued to hold back the Clefairy. So what are you going to, knowing you can't battle us with your Pokemon? James asked. It was Brock who spoke up. We will just use one Pokemon then. Go Onix. He said as he released the giant rock snake from the Pokeball. Ash, Serena, and Misty admired the size of Onix while Team Rocket's sweat dropped. They certainly weren't expecting an Onix to show up. Its head even reached past the hole in the roof and Pikachu climbed on top of it. Team Rocket quickly regained their composure and thought of a new plan. Let's show them that size doesn't matter. Ekans, dig underground. Jessie ordered. Coughing, launch a smoke screen, James ordered as well. The smoke then erupted from Coughing, which blinded the group and the Pokemon momentarily. I'm really getting tired of this attack, Ash muttered as he and the others coughed. Pidgeotto. Use Gust to blow away the smoke. He then released the bird Pokemon. Pidgeotto did a great job of blowing away the smoke, but the group was surprised to find that Jessie, James, Meowth, and the grunts were nowhere in sight. To top it off, the moon stone was gone, and all that was left was a giant hole. Oh no! Team Rocket must have stolen the moonstone, Serena said worriedly. Ash scowled. That battle must have just been a distraction to get the moonstone. We have to get it back. We can't let those guys get away with it. Right? Onix, follow them underground and hurry. Brock ordered the rock snake. Onix gave a mighty roar and dove straight underground while Ash, Serena, Brock, and Misty turned to the Clefairy. Don't worry, Clefairy. We'll get the moonstone back. Ash told them as he and the others hurried off. The Clefairy just tilted their heads and watched the group go in confusion. Then, unknown to the humans, one by one the Clefairy jumped into the hole that had been created by Onix. Jessie, James, Meowth, and their grunts were now riding down a wooden sleigh and sliding down the mountain with the moonstone tied down. It sure helps to have 7 of us so we could get that moonstone quickly, James said. Yes. We may have lost the fossils, but we are taking to headquarters the biggest prize of all, Jessie agreed. This just shows that nice guys finish last. James finished happily. We just went from worst to first, Meowth said victoriously. Their cheering was cut short, however, as Onix burst out of the ground right in front of them. Due to the speed at which they were going, they were unable to move in time and slammed right into Onix. Their sleigh was completely smashed, and each rocket member landed on the ground quite hard. The moonstone rolled off to the side a few yards away. Now we've got you. We won't let you get away with that moonstone, Ash said as he and the group appeared behind Team Rocket. Team Rocket stared in surprise. How did the group catch up so fast? They soon recovered, however. Oh yeah? Well, we'll just see about that, Jessie retorted before turning to the 4 grunts. Attack those twerps. The 4 grunts, however, were lying on the ground unconscious. They must have been knocked out when they collided with Onix. It was then Team Rocket realized they were at a serious disadvantage in both people and Pokemon numbers. Grr. They are so useless, Jessie growled. Grab them now, Onix, Brock called out. We aren't going to give up that easily. Coughing. Use counter-attack. James shot back quickly. Coughing then flew forward and slammed right into Onyx's head. Due to counter giving out double the damage, Onyx fell to ground pretty hard. Onyx. Brock trailed sadly as he watched Onyx struggle to get back up. It was then that Ash noticed something. Look. Isn't that Clefairy? He pointed out as the Clefairy leaped one by one out of the hole Onyx had dug. The Clefairy all then stood in front of Team Rocket. Team Rocket watched in confusion as the Clefairy lifted their arms and began wiggling the fingers back and forth. This only added to Team Rocket's confusion. What are they doing? Meowth stuttered in confusion as he, Jesse, and James continued to watch the Clefairy. Soon, they seemed to become entranced by it and began moving their heads back and forth in a similar motion to the Clefairy's fingers. I think the Clefairy are using metronome, Brock informed the group. It's an attack where anything can happen, so be on your guard. The Clefairy soon stopped and a bright light engulfed Team Rocket before there was a huge explosion that sent them, their Pokémon, and the grunts flying through the air. Unfortunately, the Moonstone was caught in the blast also and shattered into tiny bits. Looks like Team Rocket's blasting off. Jesse, James, and Meowth screamed as they continued to sail through air until they disappeared into the distance. Tiny bits of the Moonstone began to rain down upon the group and the Clefairy as the group watched sadly. The Moonstone. It's shattered, Serena muttered sadly. However, bits of the Moonstone were falling on a few of the Clefairy. The Clefairy that were hit by the Moonstone began to glow white. Soon they grew taller with larger wings. And a more human-shaped body with longer ears. They evolved into Clefable. Wow! The Clefairy evolved. So that's the power of the Moonstone, Ash exclaimed as he and Serena pulled out their Pokédexes. Clefable, the fairy Pokémon and the evolved form of Clefairy. Clefable are among the rarest Pokémon in the world, the monotonous Pokédex voices said. Amazing, the group said in wonder as they watched the scene taking place. About 20 minutes later, the group and Clefairy were back in the room where the Moonstone originally was. It was now no longer one piece, but instead a pile of the small pieces it had broken into. The Clefairy and Clefable didn't seem to mind, though. They were all dancing around the Moonstone in a circular fashion. It's almost like they are worshipping the Moonstone. It's so mysterious, Ash commented as he and the others watched the dance. Chuyuo, Pikachu agreed. It was almost entranced by the mysterious dance. Of course. The Moonstone is very sacred to the Clefairy and Clefable, Misty replied. What do you mean? Ash asked. The Clefairy and Clefable are said to come from the moon, Brock answered. If that's true, then it would only make sense that they are very attached to the Moonstone. It's their last connection to their original home. The Clefable soon stopped dancing and one, who was presumed to be the leader, came and bowed before the group. Clefable. Fable, it said in its high-pitched voice. I think it's saying thank you, Serena smiled. The Clefable that had bowed then went over to the Moonstone and took 4 small pieces from the pile and went back over to the group. It then held out the pieces towards the group. Oh. You want us to take these pieces of the Moonstone with us as thanks? Ash asked. Clefable, the Clefable answered as it smiled and nodded its head. Well, in that case, thank you very much. Ash said gratefully as he and the others took the Moonstone pieces to place in their backpacks. Hey! You know, I was thinking. Rather than turn in all of these fossils Team Rocket stole to the police, why don't we leave them here with the Clefairy and Clefable? They should know what to do with them, Brock suggested. Good idea, Ash agreed. He and the others then took off the Team Rocket backpacks and set them down on the ground before the Clefable and Clefairy. The head Clefable then bowed in thanks again before reaching into the backpacks and presenting 3 Pokemon fossils to the group. One was in the shape of a spiral, the Helix fossil, while others seemed to be in the shape of a flat stone, the Dome fossil, and an old amber fossil. Ah, so you want us to take these fossils as gifts, as well? Ash guessed as the Clefable nodded again. So which of us should keep these 3? I would feel bad about just one of us not receiving these. I remember that scientist guy saying there will be a machine ready in the future that can revive these fossils. I think the Helix fossil will be turned into an Omenid while the Dome fossil can become a Kabuto. An old amber fossil becomes an Aerodactyl, Serena recalled. Ah, that's right. I remember hearing about that during one of my visits to the museum. Both Omenid and Kabuto are rock and water dual-type Pokemon. I think it would be a great experience for me as a breeder to study one of the prehistoric Pokemon if they can possibly be revived. You guys wouldn't mind if I had one, would you? The group figured Brock's words made sense, so they allowed him to take the first pick. He chose the Dome fossil. Despite Omenid and Kabuto being a part water-type Pokemon, they seem really scary, so count me out, Misty said. I guess that means you and me can get the remaining 2, Ash said while looking at Serena. Which one would you like? Serena looked back and forth between the fossils as she thought about which one to take. She suddenly remembered the thought of how wild an Aerodactyl would be to train and figured it was best left in the hands of Ash, so she chose the Helix fossil. I guess that leaves the old amber fossil for me, Ash said quietly as he gently took the remaining fossil from the Clefable. He imagined the thought of what training an Aerodactyl would be like. He realized he would have to get a lot stronger by the time they reached Cinnabar Island if he were to be able to handle one, assuming the machine was ready by then. The Clefable then gave a short bow in thanks once again. It then returned to its group where they continued the ceremony with the Moonstone by dancing as the group watched. It was now the next morning, and the group were leaving MT Moon right now and saying goodbye to the Clefairy and Clefable. The Clefairy and Clefable allowed the group to sleep in the room with the Moonstone for the night so they wouldn't have to travel through the cave again. Then they generously led them to the exit of MT Moon. So long, Clefairy and Clefable, Ash called as he and the rest of the group waved. Pika-Pi, Pikachu said as it waved also from Ash's shoulder. Clefairy, Clefable, they said back. The group continued to wave until the Pokemon were out of sight. It sure was neat to see the Clefairy and Clefable do their Moonstone ritual, wasn't it? Ash asked the group as they continued to walk. It sure was. Not too many people will be able to see that in their entire lifetime, Brock agreed. They even let us keep pieces of the Moonstone and a few fossils. So how far is Cerulean City? Serena asked. Brock then reached into his backpack to check the map. It looks like we should arrive there the day after tomorrow according to the distance on this map, he mused. None of them had noticed Misty gave a slight sulking expression when they had mentioned Cerulean City. About 10 minutes later the group came upon a sign on the road that pointed into the direction of Cerulean City. Well, it looks like we are heading in the right direction, Brock said once he saw the sign. He then noticed something. Hey! It looks like someone wrote a message on the side of this sign. Well, you guys know how people like to write silly messages sometimes. I wonder what it says, Ash wondered curiously as he and rest of the group leaned in to get a better look. Gary Oak was here. Ash is a loser. Grr. That Gary, Ash growled. Even now after all these years, his greatest rival still couldn't resist taunting him. To think, Ash thought he and Gary were past that stage in their life. Serena herself thought Gary was acting rather childish. Before she could put her hand on Ash to comfort him, he suddenly made a mad dash in the direction of Cerulean City, almost causing Pikachu to fall off due to the sudden change in speed. I'll show him. Ash shouted as he continued to speed along the path. "Who's Garryoke?" Misty asked Serena curiously as they watched Ash dash away. "No time to explain," Serena said hurriedly as she ran after Ash to try to catch up with him. "Wait for me," Brock shouted after them. "Hey! What's the rush?" Misty yelled as she brought up the rear.